I'm Elle Embers, and this is Cosmic Curiosities.
Hello, curious souls, and welcome to Cosmic Curiosities. My name is Elle, and if you would like to build on your connection between your soul and you, and are interested in how cosmic channeling, past life regression, or energetic coaching can assist you on your journey, you can send me a message on Instagram or visit my website, ellembers.com. Today is such an exciting day for me because it is my birthday, and I am so thrilled to be spending it with one of my favorite people, Daniel the Past Life Regressionist. Yes, that's right, Dan is making a comeback to chat about past life connections. Now, I'm sure you're all aware from episode 10, which if you haven't heard, I recommend listening to before this episode. But if you have heard it, you'll know that Dan and I tend to get carried away. So, I've split this episode into two parts. Part 1 you'll hear today, but part 2 will be released next week. So today's episode will have a bit of a sudden stop, but I promise we'll pick things up right where we left off next week. But in both these episodes, we've covered so much, and we get into some really interesting concepts. But it's also really cool to see how things have changed. Because as practitioners and regular time travelers, our opinions and perspectives on all things past lives are constantly shifting and growing. So it's been really cool to look back at our understanding of things 6 months ago and to see just how far we've come now. So let's dive in. Hey, Daniel.
Hi, Auntie Elle.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me over for dinner, Auntie Elle.
Ah, it's always a pleasure.
I like your soup, Auntie Elle.
My soup.
I was just thinking, what would an Auntie Elle make if I was going on for dinner? Probably be porridge.
Oh, God, no. I'm not a porridge eater.
Maybe meatloaf.
I would hate to think what I'm not a cook. Like, I cannot cook anything. I think the one thing I can actually cook is lasagna, and that's it.
It's not an easy thing to do.
That's the only thing I can make.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into making a lasagna.
Not really.
You gotta layer it. We'll put the thing. I mean, I've never made one before, but from what I've eaten them. So looks like you gotta put some noodle down and then something on top of that and another noodle down and then some sauce and something else. And so there's, layers.
Yeah, but that's all it is. It's just layering. And it's not like, okay, I gotta be fair. Like, it's not like I make the the pastry layers myself. Like, I buy the pre-made sheets of lasagna.
Okay, that was my next question.
And I just kind of like stack it all together.
Oh, so you still stack it. So it's not just turning on the oven and unwrapping it. So you gotta...
No.
Okay, well, there's a little bit of ingenuity that goes into that.
But yeah, that's the only thing I can make. I can't make anything else.
Cool.
Do you want to give everyone a quick refresher of who you are and what it is you do?
Sure. I am Daniel the Past Life Regressionist. I am the host of a podcast called Timeless Spirituality. I am Elle's nephew from a past life, among other things. And as the name suggests, I'm a past life regressionist. So yeah, I mean, it's been talked about before. Is it okay if I say I highly recommend everyone goes and listens to episode 10? Was it 10?
Yeah.
Episode 10 of Cosmic Curiosities before listening to this one.
So then they have a good reference.
Yeah. Because I talk about what I do a lot, so I don't want to talk about that now. I mean, well, the explanation for it, because I already covered it on your podcast.
Yeah, we've been there. We've done that.
Yeah, and I like frozen yogurt.
And there's always food-related analogies to everything.
Yeah, and we've already been talking about lasagna and porridge and meatloaf.
And soup.
And soup. Yeah, it's probably just the beginning. There'll be more. I mean, I'm already thinking about pizza.
Oh, I had pizza last night.
That's amazing, Al. Thanks for sharing. I'm staying away from the carbs right now. That's why I'm thinking about the pizza. But I am thinking about going and getting frozen yogurt when we're finished.
What flavor are you going to get there?
If I'm going to go to the place that I'm thinking of going to right now, I will get vanilla with cookie dough, which is usually my go-to, but the way that this place does it is they do a blend. Oh, you want to hear the funniest story ever?
Yeah.
I probably should have finished that sentence first. The funniest story ever from when someone found out what it is that I do for work.
Yes, you promised to tell me this last time.
Okay, so it's a frozen yogurt story.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite frozen yogurt place is about 20 minutes from my place, where I live right now. So whenever I'm out in that direction, I'll go there. So the story starts on a Monday. I made a stop at my favorite frozen yogurt place to get frozen yogurt. And I'm the kind of guy who, I don't like small talk, but I will ask someone how they're doing. Like, how's your day going? Just hoping that they'll say, good, how about you? Sometimes you get more than that. So this is my absolute favorite frozen yogurt place. Been going there ever since I was a little kid. And the owner was there. Now, I've seen the owner a lot, but I never talked to the owner. Now, on that particular day, the owner said to me, so you have the day off of work? I said, yeah. And then she said to me, what do you do? I said, I'm a past life regressionist. Oh, at this point, I had already paid for my yogurt. And when I told her that, she just had this look on her face and she was like, oh. Now, at this point, I just really wanted to eat my yogurt. So I said, yeah, have a good day. And I left. I went back the next day for more frozen yogurt because I needed to be in the area again. And this time, have you ever seen Curb Your Enthusiasm before?
I actually haven't. I've heard about it, but I haven't actually seen it.
Really? You like Seinfeld? You've never seen Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I know. People get at me all the time.
Get on that, Elle. Auntie Elle. So, there was an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David was at an ice cream parlor. And there was this woman in front of him who was sampling all the different ice creams. And of course, Larry David on Curb he vocalizes what he's thinking. So, he's making remarks about, you got to taste every one. Like, which one is it going to be? This and that. So this particular day, when I went to get frozen yogurt, which was the next day after the beginning of the story, there was a woman standing in front of me and she was sampling all the yogurts. And we're on the ice, because they have a little ice cream thing there too. I think it was the ice creams that she was sampling. Didn't really bother me because there was someone else who was available to help me. But just to set the scene for you a little bit. And, I get my my yogurt and she is paying. So she's sitting there paying. I'm sitting there waiting to pay. And the owner says to me, I meet a lot of interesting people and I've heard about a lot of interesting professions, but I don't think I've ever heard about one as unique as yours. And the woman next to me, with a mouthful of ice cream, turns to me and just says, are you a hairdresser? Look, I understand that my hair might look a little up sometimes, and I probably had it gelled up. Again, not to make any gross overgeneralizations about anyone, but I was probably wearing a t-shirt and Levi's at the time. So I don't know what besides my hairstyle would have screamed hairdresser to her. So I just looked at her. I said, no, I'm the next best thing. I'm a past life regressionist. With that mouthful of yogurt. Was it yogurt? It was either yogurt or ice cream at that point, but whatever it was that white gooey substance, which I was going to be eating very soon from my own cup.
Just to specify.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh, sorry. One other thing to throw in here. Not necessary, but I'm just going to throw it in for context. So this particular yogurt place is located in an area where there is somewhat of a class divide. If you go a mile or two in one direction, it's very expensive homes. And then if you go the other direction, it's a lot more apartments, a lot more condos, a lot more single family homes that are much smaller. And I'm going to make an assumption that she was one of the ones that came down from the hills. Just that very entitled look of I run the show wherever I go. I drive slow. I take up both lanes. I'm going to take up 3 parking spaces. That kind of person. So I said to her, no, next best thing. I'm a past life regressionist. And she's like, what's that? With the mouth full. And I said to her, do you believe in reincarnation? And she just made this face that was absolute repulsion, like, oh, no, no. Still with the yogurt. And I briefly explained what it is that I do. And she's and I looked at the owner and I just kind of gave her this look of, I see the shit you got to deal with. So, yeah. What's cool about that place also is I ended up doing sessions with relatives of people who work there, because I became known as the past life regressionist guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's always cool. So that's my yogurt story. And what's even cooler to me about that story, though, is that happened in early 2020. So I'd been a past life regressionist for 4 years at that point. And had that happened to me, if it happened to me a year before that, it would have been okay. But had that happened to me 2 years before, or even 3 years before, I may have never wanted to do past life regression again. To receive a response like that would have crushed me, because I don't know, at that point I actually cared what people thought. But when that happened that day, I just walked away with this gigantic smile on my face, because that was pure gold. I couldn't have made that up. I mean, I could have, but I didn't have to, because it was just perfect the way that it was.
Yeah.
I was so happy that it happened for that reason. And I wasn't even going on podcasts at that point or sharing my stories as a past life regressionist, but that was one of those things where, like, one day this is going to be a good story to tell. And yeah, so that's my yogurt story. And one day there may be a story that tops that. But until then, that's the cream of the crop.
Just some random lady with just ice cream, frozen yogurt just pouring out of her mouth, being like,
Yeah.
what?
Well, and the hairdresser thing. Because I didn't get what was so unique about that. Why would the owner be, oh, you have the most unique job of anything I've heard. I mean, hairdresser's up there with accountant in terms of just
notability.
Exactly. Yeah. And not to take away from hairdressers at all, because I know I'm talking to one right now. But yeah. Oh, yeah, that is even more ironic, is that I'm telling the story to a hairdresser right now.
Yeah, well, an ex-hairdresser.
I'm sorry, ex-hairdresser. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that's my yogurt story.
Definite hairdresser.
Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, my t-shirts are usually not logoed. They're just bland t-shirts. So I'm like that kind of guy who, when you look at me, it's not this look of, oh man, you got a way out there style. Like you're peacocking, man. No, it's nothing like that. Does it work? My style work for me? Yeah, it works for me. But I'm not wearing those bright colors. Yeah. Not wearing slick shoes or anything like that. I mean, I own 3 pairs of shoes and a pair of sandals. So.
Sandals.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I do live in Southern California.
I live in Australia.
So what are you coming at me for sandals for? Is there something wrong with wearing sandals?
No, I guess not. No.
Okay. So what, she's calling me an old man right now for wearing sandals? Okay.
Yes.
It's well, my sandals aren't the ones with the little, thing between the big toe and the pointer toe. I wear the ones where it's where you slide your whole foot in, and they're more comfortable. I don't like that feeling of having that between my toes there.
In Australia, we call them thongs, and I know that that's like underwear in the US.
Yeah. Well, I think at least when I was growing up, they called them thongs as well for sandals. But I think it's that kind of, again, I'm a past life regressionist, not a clothing designer here, so please don't quote me on this. I think thong sandals are the ones, yeah, with the pointer toe and the big toe.
But don't you guys call them like flip-flops?
Yeah, we call them that too. Yeah.
Right, we don't do that.
So do men who are under 80 wear flip-flops?
Flip-flops, yes. But sandals where there's like, you slide your foot in and there's like straps or something, no.
Oh yeah, I don't wear those. It's a little language barrier here.
Very much.
It's like we're speaking 2 different kinds of English.
Hey, in Australia, it's like, do we even speak English? Because there's that much slang that sometimes it's hard to tell.
I mean, I have no problem understanding you.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been a prisoner in a couple lives. So it wouldn't surprise me if I lived one of those as a prisoner in Australia.
Maybe.
Who knows? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I've probably been to Australia one time or another in a past life. Or that I was a Kiwi. I learned that from an Australian. I didn't know that's what they call people in New Zealand, right? Kiwis?
Yeah, we call them Kiwis.
Yeah, I didn't know that until like a year ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't call like New Zealanders New Zealanders. We call them Kiwis.
Well, how would I know that being from America?
You just meant to know, Daniel.
Well, I don't like your seasons. They're backwards.
Well, I don't like how you guys just decide halfway through a month that that's a new season.
You know it's based off of the tilt of the earth, right?
Yeah, but we don't do it that way. We're not going to just be like halfway through July and be like, oh, now it's winter.
Well,
No.
we don't change it in the middle of July.
Or June, whatever.
Get it right, Auntie Elle. It's June. And yes, maybe from time to time it changes from June 20th to the 22nd or anywhere in that range. But it is around that range when we do it.
Well, see, for us, it's like June 1st. There you go. It's winter now. Just pull out your sweaters.
And you know what we call that day when that happens in June? We call that the solstice.
Fancy words for it.
Yeah, the summer solstice up here. And you know what we call it when we change the next season in late September?
That's fall for you, isn't it?
Yeah. We call that the equinox.
Very nice.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about, I don't know, manicures and pedicures now or something like that?
No. We should probably get back on track. So I have invited you back because we received so many questions about our past life connections from our last episode.
P.S. I know none of these questions that are about to be asked.
This is true. And I thought we did so well last time not having you prepared. So
Yeah, that went over really well.
But we'll see how we go. So, I mean, obviously, I was an aunt in a past life, and I thought that was kind of explanation enough for most people. But apparently, you guys are really nosy and, and want to know full details. So, I guess I can fill in a little bit of that, but I won't go too much into detail because I know that we do have an episode coming out on Daniel's podcast where I do dive into some more past life stuff. So I'll give you guys a little brief overview. I was living a kind of witch pagan sort of life, and my sister was married to a preacher, and she had a son, which was Daniel.
Hey, Auntie Elle.
Hey. And he got ill with some sort of plague.
I hate bad frozen yogurt.
Yeah, you should really watch that.
Never mind, that'd be bacterial. That wouldn't be viral. So I'm sorry about that. I'm going to shut up now.
So my sister brought you to me in hopes that I could do some sort of herbalism stuff to fix you, but that was unfortunately not going to be possible. So I dived into a little more of the dark arts of witchcraft and conjured up a way to save you in replacing your life with my life sort of thing. It was a sacrificial thing, and definitely not my wisest decision. But yeah, so I did end up sacrificing myself to save little old Daniel here in a past life. And as much as I love you in this life, I'm sorry I would not repeat that. Because apparently, as I was listening back to the sessions, the higher self said that this had happened a couple of times through different lifetimes. And I was like, great, okay, this is a theme. So yes, very much aware of that now. And I think too, after I had my session, I did kind of carry a little bit of that overbearing motherly instinct back with me to feel the need to check up on you all the time and make sure that you're okay. And if it's cold out, you have a jacket on and you're eating and looking after yourself.
I'm like, Elle, it's summertime here. Why do I need a jacket?
hey, it's summertime here as well. It's fine.
Well, it is now. This was 7 months ago.
True. But yeah, we kind of just developed this ongoing family friendship sort of thing since then. But what came up for you during my encounter with our past life selves?
I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. That was kind of the feeling I got. But I mean, the other part of it was that was the second session we had done. And, you mentioned this on my podcast, but you had done another regression with someone else in between our first session and second session. And this particular life had come up, which you didn't share with me what came up or anything like that. So you were a bit frustrated when it came up because I think you were coming from a place of, now I got to explain it to him. I've already seen this. And so, yeah, I mean, I was pretty much going in there blind. So, like, wow, this is getting intense. These rituals and, well, because then, the one you saw after that too, which followed you from life to life. So, well, even when you brought up the nephew, I don't think you said it was me right away, which, I mean, I pretty much knew when the nephew showed up. Like, yeah, that's me. Just that feeling of being there. And I mean, there was a familiarity about it for me as well. But beyond that, it was a matter of how do we end this now? Because that kind of was the theme, even though it was a continuation from the first session, is what is this thing that is stuck with you? And then as we saw in the next episode, in the next life, and it was this agreement that followed you from life to life. So it was kind of even a feeling of buckling up because, all right, we got to get rid of this thing. So it no longer is something that will plague you from life to life. But I think there's that feeling of reciprocity as well, where you saved me in that life. And even from your first session, the impression that I got was that something similar had happened under similar circumstances, but we were in different roles. So it was, just something that kept happening. So I found myself in a position to then potentially help. I don't want to say fully free you from it, but at least alleviate it. Of course, with the intention being to free you from it completely. So there was that feeling that was nice about it. I don't know if nice is the right word, but yeah, maybe even fulfilling of, okay, now I get to do my part to return the favor. And I think that's also one of the cool things about being a past life regressionist is I feel that oftentimes people who I'm encountering who are my clients are people who I've crossed paths with in other lives. And I may have harmed them in other lives, or maybe not, maybe similar circumstances where they did something to help me. And this is the balance that's taking place. So it's not necessarily eye for an eye. Like you need to come down with some fatal plague or something like that. Then I need to embark on some pagan ritual to cross over to the underworld to make a deal with them. I don't need to do that shit. So I think that's where it's the feeling of balance, but not where it doesn't have to be the same.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a common misconception or misperception that people have. And again, maybe it's not. Maybe this is just the way that I see it with regards to a karmic balance, but I feel that people think it's eye for an eye. Where if you're on the receiving end of one particular event, then you're going to be on the other side of it. Or, it's if you hurt someone in a past life, then they're going to hurt you in a future life to balance it out. And I don't believe that that's the way that it is. So there's that feeling of balance that comes with it too.
Yeah. It's definitely something that I think most people kind of jump to that conclusion of it has to be the same thing to balance it out or repay the situation. But I don't feel that that's the case either. I feel like there's ways that this finds its own balance through different actions, through different lifetimes. And it may not be the next lifetime in a linear sense that's sorted out, but it could be lifetimes down the track or multiple lifetimes that it takes to resolve it.
Right. I don't know if numbers necessarily have to equate, because I know, as you've talked about on the podcast before, like you have encountered some some heavy shit in your life. We'll put it that way. You know, some things that other people may not be able to explain. I mean, things that I fully believe happened to you. But what happens once you're freed from that? You know, once you're freed from that and you're able to live your life in a more fulfilling manner and then go out there into the world and help countless amount of people who are then going to help countless people on their journeys and so on and so forth. So is the act of being the facilitator in your regression and helping still cut the cords there, does that equal to all of the times that you may have sacrificed yourself for me in past lives? And still, I swear, I mean, I don't think it has to be, okay, well, she sacrificed herself 74 times for me throughout these various incarnations, so then I have to free her 74 times from this or that, or I have to help free her in 20 different cases and then find 55 other ways. Sorry, 54. Numbers are important. 54 other ways to make up those times that she sacrificed herself. Or so is it about the ripple effects?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's what that did for me in the long run, rather than just in that moment personally for me, but how it affected me and how that in turn affects other people.
Mm-hmm.
But that having that familiarity as well, from your perspective of being the practitioner, does that happen a lot? Do you find that there's a lot of clients that do come across that path in past lives with you?
Hold on, let me pull out my book. Just gonna flash some of this to Elle right now.
Just a few.
Well, I'm still going. Still turning.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I tend to show up from time to time.
And this is where, like, I had fears. Well, not fears, but, like, concerns of, like, am I projecting this? You know what I mean? Because a lot of the time I had heard in previous podcasts, even on yours, about, you know, certain clients seeing you in their regressions. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, sure you did. Like, he's just there. It's relevant. Like, you're going to place him somewhere in the mix, right? And I was like, okay, in my session, definitely not going to happen. Like, he's definitely not going to show up in my session, right? And I mean, the first session, you didn't. It was fine. It was kind of like when I asked the higher self for more information and they told me that I wasn't ready, and I was like, fuck you, tell me anyway, that I got bits and pieces of, like, extra things, which kind of then pushed me to go, okay, I need to do this again. Which, guys, I would recommend an integration period before moving on to more and more past life regression sessions.
Yes, so would I. So Elle just took it upon herself to go book with another practitioner in that time.
Because I was so just stubborn. And I was like, no, I need to know. Like, you've given me bits and pieces of visions. I need to, like, put them into place, right?
By the way, I'm not bitter that she booked with another practitioner. It's okay. She found her way back to her nephew.
Yes. But isn't that always the way, too? It's like, when you do something professionally, you don't take as much care for yourself in that area. It's like, you know, from past experience, it's like hairdressers that are like, no, you can't bleach your hair like that, it will break. And you're just there with, like, a full head of bleach going, it's fine. Like, it'll be fine. You just kind of don't take those own precautions for yourself. And I'm very stubborn. So I was like, no, I need to know. I need to find out more. And again, I went and had a session with somebody else because I'm a traitor.
We'll probably discover that life at a certain point where you were a traitor. Sorry, I just had to chime in there. I'm curious to hear what the rest of this is going to be.
Yeah, so I did have another session with another practitioner who I didn't honestly feel as comfortable with. So I was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I didn't feel like I resonated with this practitioner quite as much as what I did with Daniel. And I think that definitely showed in my regressions. But one of the lives that did show up in that regression was parts with Daniel that I was getting visions of prior. So it did shed some more information and some more light. But then when I did go and have my second session with Daniel, I didn't want to be like, oh, I have all this information to share about our past life together, because I didn't want to be that guy, right? And when it showed up in our second session, that's when I was like, oh, great. Now I have to go and fully explain everything about where this happened, how it happened, where I got to, and so on. But because I was so much more comfortable with you, when we did revisit this life in our session...
What do you mean we? When I, being you, revisited this life?
Well,
I'm sorry. Because I'm not bitter about her going with another practitioner. I'm more bitter about her not filling me in on any of this stuff before the session. Because there's one more thing I got to say before you go on with that. When you're saying, oh yeah, and then I filled them in with these details. I remember you giving me the bare minimum when you were in that regression of just, well, I already know this stuff. Okay, I'm over here, this here. And then it's like, thank you. Now figure it out, Daniel.
This is true. And this is also why it is very important when you go to your practitioner and you have a session with them that you are very open and detailed about everything that you're seeing so that they can effectively navigate you through. And I did not do that very well. I'm sorry.
In your defense, I've had that happen with practitioners who I've tried with, or them doing a session for me for the first time, where I see lives that I've already seen before, and I'm just like, shit, I really don't want to spend the time explaining this to them right now. And then that same feeling of when they're trying to go through all the steps of orienting me in, I'm like, I'm already here. I know what I'm wearing. Let's focus on what's important now. But I mean, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just like, okay, well, this is what I see. This is what's happening right now. Because I mean, also for me, am I supposed to sit there with them in the pre-session and go over all the lives that I just get? Well, here's the history, Sorry, because I have my own sessions very frequently. Well, I have a couple a year, which is still very frequently, but I just don't want to make it sound like I'm doing them every week.
Yeah. Every few months.
Yeah.
Like I should have been more descriptive, which I do apologize for, but I did kind of fill you in a little bit after the fact, which I probably should have
very
done
helpful
in a
after the
pre-session.
fact.
So yeah, maybe we do need like a whole history rundown in the pre-session of like, this is the shit I've seen so far. If this comes up.
Yeah, I mean, you had no problem telling me you had another session. So it's not like you were keeping it from me because you didn't want me to find out that, you had betrayed me.
Well, I did keep it from you for a little while.
What, that the information or that you had another session?
Both.
Would you wait like an hour to tell me that you had another session?
No, I waited maybe, I don't know, maybe like a couple months.
A couple months?
Yeah.
What are you told me about you having another session before we had the second session.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was like it would have been at least a month because it was like a couple of weeks after that I had it. Which I would not advise, guys. Do not do that. Definitely take the time to integrate everything you've learned, everything that you've seen, process, because if you don't and you try and push it all together, there's a lot of shit you got to deal with at once. But, I did get a lot further in that session with you than I did with the other practitioner, and I think that is because of comfortability factors. So I did get a lot more information, we did go a lot deeper, and I was able to find out more to the story and kind of put more things into perspective. So that was very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, finding that it didn't stop in that life and it did kind of push through into the next life after that in a linear time sense, maybe. It was interesting to kind of point that view back at what I experienced in my younger years in this life and seeing the correlations of like maybe maybe this was showing up for a reason. Maybe this is why this was going on. Maybe this is what this had to do with. And definitely going through and releasing that with you. It was very much like a soul retrieval kind of process. Like, I felt like I very much went into that regression not quite ever feeling whole or complete. I always felt like something was missing, like I just wasn't quite who I was meant to be. And going into that regression and understanding why, like, oh yeah, you made a deal with these like dark entities to save a kid's life, and then, oh, you have a debt to pay. And you haven't quite got there yet, and we're just going to follow you until you do. That kind of shed some light on some things. But going through that process and releasing it and coming out the other side, it was like the first time I ever felt complete or whole. Yeah, it was like a feeling beyond description.
Aw, Auntie Elle.
So I know that's why, like, a lot of the time I always joke about, oh, you know, I always talk you up, but there's good reason. Not just because we're family.
Oh, Auntie Elle. Thank you. Or something that just came to me while you were talking about not sharing all that information with me beforehand is, sorry, not bitter about that. I think it's kind of like again, we're not doctors as past life regressionists, but when you go to a doctor, you usually tell them what medications you're on. Just so they have that information, that knowledge, so they can, you know, make a more sound decision based off of what you've provided them. And I even equate that to, in our first session during the pre-session, you had shared the experiences that you had with me when you were younger. You know, things that were seemingly unrelated to past lives, but still important nonetheless, because I liken those to the medications. Because then when those things pop up during a past life, it's like, oh, okay, it's not completely out of left field. And yeah, because that's something I hear from people a lot during the pre-session. Well, there's this thing, but I don't think it's relevant. I'm like, tell me. You never know. And of course, it ends up becoming very relevant to the session. So yeah, I think it's a matter of also just acknowledging as individuals the holistic nature of all of this. That even though we think these things are seemingly unrelated, that it's all part of something bigger.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking multidimensional there necessarily, or maybe I am, I don't know. But things are connected. And that even if something doesn't look like something else, the link may become clear. Period.
Yeah.
That's what you put at the end of the sentence in English, or at least in our English. I don't know how you guys do it.
We do it too.
Does your period look like a dot or like a dagger?
A dot?
I'm pretty proud of myself for that one.
I was like, ooh, harsh.
I love the Australian people.
But yeah, like, it is super important to, you know, go through.
Like, why am I going off on the Australians so much? I'm sorry.
It's just the bitterness. He's just bitter.
What am I bitter about? What?
That I went and saw another practitioner.
I don't know. Was she Australian?
She was.
That's it. That's what I'm bitter about. That's why I'm going off on the Australian.
That's why it's coming up.
Yeah, that's probably it. Either that or I was just an Aboriginal person there at some point.
Maybe.
That would make more sense.
It would.
Yeah. It's the Aborigines, right? That's what you guys call them?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I got that right. I'm not conflating different places on the earth.
No. We call them the traditional owners of our land, and we often acknowledge them before ceremonies and things like that to acknowledge, you know, we stole the land from them and kind of.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually very, very kind of you guys. I don't think we would ever do that over here. I think we should.
We're just kind of working on like changing the day for Australia Day, because that is not a good day, because it was really like we just massacred their people and took their land, but we celebrate it as a national holiday. Like, we could change the date, guys. So yeah, it's a big thing, and people are becoming more and more aware of it, and less people are celebrating it for that fact. But yeah,
it's kind of like us in Columbus Day.
Yeah. But yes, Australians, we're aware of the shitty things we've done.
That's good. I should move to Australia.
You should.
Maybe I'll live in Australia from, we'll say May until October. And then I'll move back to the States November to like May or November, April. I'd like to have constant winter. Well, like, LA winters and Australia winters.
Yeah. Our winters are nice. And our spring is quite nice as well. It's only when you get to like December, and December it gets hot. Like we don't have white Christmas. Like that's just not a thing. We have dying in like 80-degree heat. Like
when you say 80, is that
Celsius?
80?
Not 80, it's a dramatic. But yeah, we have like 45 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, 80, huh? Like if my math is right, it's probably the hottest temperature on Earth by far.
No, that's dramatic. But yeah, it's definitely, yeah, summer is hard. Summer is really hard for me. I don't do well with the heat.
Yeah, me
like
either.
I think I was very much European at some point.
Well, you were. From what you saw, you were European.
I do not cope in this climate.
That's a big question mark for everyone. So, in a linear sense, it may have been Elle's last life. As Elle said, she was probably European. From what she's I can't like finish. From what she saw, she was. What do you think she lived? What do you think she did in that past life? Europe. I'll give one hint. Man.
That's not a hint.
Many. Who is this says grrr with a pirates? Pirates are the ones that say grr, right?
I thought they were R.
It's R. Who are the ones that say grr?
I don't know.
They're just growling grr many. So there's the hint for people if they're wondering, where was that European life that Elle lived? Grr and many.
Oh, right. Germany.
Really not leaving much to be discovered there, are you?
Well, I'm sorry. It took me a while to get that, so I'm sure that other people.
Well, you're from Australia.
What are you saying, Daniel? Are you saying that makes me slower than other people?
No, I'm just stating a fact. You live in Australia. You were born in Australia. I'm not implying anything. Just stating. Just stating, Auntie Elle.
Oh, God.
Grr.
See, my cheeks are already hurting. Back to topic, right? Because we cannot stay on topic. Yeah, it's really important to go through and say everything that you can possibly say during your pre-session, even if it seems irrelevant, because those things may become relevant and you just don't know it yet. And that's why too, like, pre-sessions take a while, and we expect them to take a while. Like, that's fine. We want as much information as you're willing to give, and it just helps us go through the process with you. It helps you in the long run. So, the more information you can give us, the better. It's really where you're comfortable and what you're comfortable to share, but it's also thinking about how much you want to get out of this, how much you can really push forward and dig deep and get as much information as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, even as a practitioner, I mean, I don't know about you, but I charge by the session, not by the hour.
Yeah.
And I think that people think that I may like the shorter sessions because I'm making the same, whether it's a short session or a long session. But the truth is that the longer ones feel more fulfilling because I feel like we're covering more ground.
Yeah.
And it's usually because there's much more information presented at the beginning and someone has put a lot of thought into what they want to ask their higher self. Because those sessions when people come in with no questions for the higher self, like, look, that's fine. That's your choice. I still highly recommend that people come up with questions even when they don't come up with them beforehand. And it's, a lot of times they don't have the desire to ask, which still is okay. Like you only get out what you put in, but it's whatever you're willing to put in, which is okay. That's what's most important, is that you're getting out of it what you're willing to put in.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other important things too, but in this context, that's what's most important.
Yeah. And even with me, in my second session, I think I rocked up with like 4 questions and you were like, is this it? And I was like, I can't think of anything. And so like, we even just talked about that together and came up with more things I was curious about and wanted to know more about. Even silly things. Like, I can't even remember what was one of my silly questions. Like,
I don't know. I've had a lot of sessions since your last session.
True. But, it was just adding in little things that were like, hey, if you could ask anything without judgment, without fear, what would you want to know?
Who invented pizza?
The Italians, I believe.
Was it?
I said I believe. Belief, fact, very different. Remember?
Yeah, that's a good statement. I don't know. Maybe it was the Italians. I mean, you think, but maybe not. Maybe that's one of those trick questions.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's like an optical illusion. I like pizza.
But yeah, like I did have a lot come from my sessions because I think originally I did put so much into our pre-session. And even going into the pre-session, at first I was really nervous and I was like, oh, I really held myself back and was like, this is how I'm gonna, show you me as I show the world me, right? Like I'm very proper and then I was like, wait, this doesn't feel right. Can we start again? And you were like, yeah, oh, whatever. Like you got me the whole day. You do whatever you need to do, like whatever you're comfortable with. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's start again. All right. This is all my trauma. This is all my shit. Now you know. And you're like, cool.
Very helpful.
But it's also being able to share that sort of stuff with someone who's not there to judge you, who's not there to be like, well, maybe you shouldn't have done that, or maybe that was, they also aren't there to feel sorry for you either. Like, if something really terrible happens, like, oh, okay, they acknowledge it, like, oh, I'm sorry you went through that, but they're not there to, I guess, make you feel bad. Like, how sometimes you tell someone something traumatic has happened and you didn't want to tell them because you don't want all their like added sympathy and them to make a big deal out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't happen. Like, that's not a thing. You don't have to worry about any of it. It's just telling you how it is and what it is.
I think it depends on who you end up with.
That's true. But with you, I was very...
I mean, I'm not...
You were just like, oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, my view on it is I don't feel that we need to dwell on those things. I mean, I'm all about validating someone's experience. Because I think that that's important, to let someone know that your experience was valid and real. Like, however you experienced it, even if I wouldn't have handled it the same way, that doesn't matter because it happened to you. But, but even you brought up about not judging someone for what they did. Like, oh, well, you probably should have done something different. Yeah, well, if you did this thing, maybe it wasn't the best thing in the world that you did, but that was then. It's not who you are now, unless you're going to go do it again after we talk.
Yeah.
That's a different story then. And I tell my clients, like, I don't care who you were this morning. I don't care what you did. What I care is what you do after this session. I care how you decide to live your life when we're finished. But I've had people fess up to some pretty horrific things, but that's who they were. Because even when they're bringing those things up, I see genuine remorse. And I think that that's important because I see someone sitting in front of me who wants to be a better person. So they're going through this process to work on themselves.
Yeah.
I respect that. And I don't know if someone should be completely absolved from something necessarily, but I do believe that they should have the opportunity to grow from the experience, if that makes sense. But when it comes to judging, it's like, I really don't care what you did when you were younger. I mean, I care in the context of it helps me understand who you are now and who you want to be. That's it. But yeah, because I think if I were to coddle you too much and spend so much time on, this and that, and then you may stay stuck there. There may be a resistance to then move on because someone finally understands and they're okay with this thing so I don't need to move on from it. By the way, that's I hope the voice didn't come off wrong there, because I show up very different in sessions, but it's like, okay, this thing happened. It was real. What are you going to do with it now? What's the direction you want to take your life now? So for the things that happened to you, still things you've talked about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that shit seem off the wall? Yeah, it does. But I believe it happened. So what happened? It sucked. What are you going to do with that information now? And I don't know, Elle. It seems like you're doing a lot with that information now. Because now you're out there sharing about these things and people are not feeling so alone anymore. Like, oh, it happened to her too, and she has the courage to speak out about it. Maybe I'm not crazy. Because she seems like she has it together. Seems being the key word there. I'm kidding. What you see with Elle is what you get. So, yeah, I think did I go off on the right track there about the validation aspect, but not dwelling on it?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Why? Look, I know I'm just a past life regressionist, but I think that kind of goes hand in hand, even with, that woke word. I think it is foolish to just look at someone and say, don't be a victim. Don't be in a victim mentality. Like that's ignorant to say that to someone. It's unkind. There's a certain level of arrogance to it also. Mm. But I think there's strength in acknowledging someone's circumstances and still validating the experience, but then saying, okay, these things that happen are real. So what happens from here on out? Now, there are a lot of systemic issues in the world. Let's call a spade a spade. Some people have it easier than others. But, it's about what do you do tomorrow or this afternoon?
Yeah.
Dagger.
Dagger. And I think, too, it's a lot about how you see yourself through that process as well. Mm-hmm. Because when I went into that process, I was like, this guy's going to think I'm insane. Like, if I tell him everything that I've been through, he's going to think that I'm just a crazy person. And, anything I say after that's going to hold no merit because I'm just mentally ill. But when you actually go through this process, because it's not something that you generally do. You don't generally look at your life phase by phase and share that with someone openly and honestly. Mm-hmm. And when you do go through that, there's this element and strength to being like, okay, I know that this happened. I know that that's how this may be perceived, but this is my perspective on it. And this is it just kind of connects the dots a little bit more. And you kind of get more of an understanding of yourself even. So then you have this whole internal strength to go, okay, I don't need the validation. I don't need someone to say to me, that's okay. It's okay that you went through that, or that sucks, but what are you going to do now? You kind of come to that realization yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's I've said on the podcast before, during our session, you never told me anything. You were never this is how it is. This is what it's like. No, it was guiding me along the journey for me to do it myself. And I think that's a big misconception that people kind of tend to make, is that they put all this responsibility and expectations on the practitioner. But it's you're going to get out of it what you put in. So mm-hmm. It's however far you want to go.
Yeah, I agree. With regards to with what you said there about me thinking that you were crazy with the things that you were going to share.
It's just another Tuesday.
Well, there's that part too, but Yeah, it's just another Tuesday. I don't know if I said this to you at the time, but something I frequently say to my clients when they'll say to me first, you're going to think I'm crazy for this or what I'm about to tell you. And I just say to them, do you know what I do for work? You think I'm going to think it's crazy? Okay,
Right?
try me. But, also just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying there about it being in your hands, what you do, and that we're the space holders ultimately. It's like, even right now, I'm kicking myself for a comment that I made a while back when we were talking about the life where you were anti-Elle. Like, I had this slip where I said, and free you. And then I think I said something right after that or helped free or this, because we're not there to do that, because had you not taken the steps upon yourself to free yourself when that came up, because you could have made the decision to not let go. And there's nothing I could have done if you weren't willing to go there. So still, I think we talked about this on the last episode. If we didn't, it was on the one we did for my podcast. Keep an eye on those things when you're looking for practitioners of anything. Who are the ones that are going to tell you that they're going to heal you, or that they're going to fix you, or that they're going to save you? Because if they're going to tell you that, I would recommend looking for the one who's going to be honest with you, who doesn't present themselves as the savior, or the one who will set you on the right trajectory, or because then you're taking power away from the individual.
Yeah.
And look, I have varying degrees of success with my clients. I do the same thing every time. So who do you think is really making the change then? Or really doing the work? Is it me, or is it my clients? And look, maybe that was a slightly rhetorical question, so I'll give you the answer for it. It's my clients, because I am doing the same thing every time.
Exactly.
Dagger.
And I guess too, I did want to ask about when clients do kind of see you in past lives, is it something that you always kind of feel connected to as well? Or is there an element there where this may be a projection of some kind?
Okay, I always wonder about the element of projection, but the thing that trips me up more than that is the nature of time. Because as I, held up for you the little book I had of not even all the times when I've showed up, I think, how many pages did I have filled up of times?
Quite a lot. Yeah.
I've done a lot of sessions with people, but the element of time is what's more perplexing to me, because in a linear time sense, a lot of those lives overlap. Some of them I've been aware of and others I haven't. And when I say overlap, I mean, let's just say that I saw myself as a construction worker in 1970, living somewhere in England.
Mm-hmm.
But then someone else sees me living as a farmer in Cambodia in 1970. Is probably not a good time to be there, but
just for example's sake.
Yeah, for example's sake, forget everything going on in that part of the world at that time. So they see me as, as a farmer in Cambodia in 70, and then what was the other thing I said? A construction worker? So you have two different ethnicities. So like, even if they're kind of skewed on the time a bit, but the general time, because maybe it's 1972 as opposed to 1970, but they just clutch on to 70 because of the 70 feel.
Mm-hmm.
Figure I'm probably a full-grown adult at that time, at least if I'm working construction. Now, if I'm working as a farmer, I'm probably not 2 or 3 years old. Maybe I'm a child, but most likely I'm a little bit older than that.
Yeah.
So that would imply that I'm living in two different bodies at once. So then the question becomes, is what I saw real? Is what they saw real? Am I living in two bodies at the same time? Am I living in two bodies at the same time in different dimensions? Am I living in two different bodies at the same time in some kind of multiverse are both simply projections. That's what trips me up more than wondering if they're just projecting me into the story. Because look, I think it's possible that could happen. But there are times when I also wonder why. Because if I'm reading you what's in that book, not a lot of glamorous shit in there. So the question is why? Why would they take the time to project me into their story? I mean, I'm just myself. I'm nothing special. I mean, yeah, sure, I'm cool. But would it be cool to hang out with me for a day? Yeah, probably. I mean, it depends. Sometimes I can kind of be in a mood, especially if I'm hungry, then I'm be a little grumpy. But, why becomes the question. But then there are also times when I'm very careful about the lives that I share publicly. Not because I'm afraid of divulging things or about, just how will someone perceive this. But a lot of the time is because I'm also looking to not ask myself those questions about the validity of things, because I'm always challenging the validity of everything. So if I were to, or if they were to see themselves in a life that I had described either on my show or another interview or whatever it is, would I be raising more of a brow? Yeah, I probably would, because I'd be thinking, well, I already talked about this. So maybe they're projecting it into this one, because I'm also very calculated with the ones that I do share, because it's about the lessons that can be there, not for the prestige of it, because I think that's just stupid to do. So those would be the moments when I would raise an eye more. But look, there are times when there are lives that I don't share publicly and that I'm there and they couldn't have known, or it's oddly coincidental. But something that also happens from time to time is, like with yours, that feeling of, oh yeah, that's me. I'm the kid, before you even say it. So there are lives, I mean, I know I have shared a couple of these on my show about where my client has just dropped into a life, and it's been one that, look, yours wasn't one I had seen, but there was this feeling of being there. But there are those ones where, oh, I've seen this before in one of my own regressions. Oh, I'm going to make my appearance pretty soon. But I guess, yeah, that was my long-winded way of saying I do believe it's possible that it could just be a projection. So I don't treat any of this as concrete, just as I don't treat past lives as concrete, even the ones that I've experienced myself. I will never rule out the possibility that it is more metaphorical than anything.
Yeah.
That it is something I'm drawing upon from the collective consciousness that isn't even my life, but it's just something where there's a relevant lesson for me in contemporary times. So I think it's foolish. Again, this is just the way that I see it. This is my belief system, but I believe it is foolish to treat these things as absolutes, because we don't know how the universe works. And still, just as I was saying, when it came to showing up in two different bodies at the same time, I don't understand the complexities of how reincarnation works, or how splitting off from an oversoul works, or even the metaphorical sense in all of that. I don't know. So I would advise everyone also, anytime you're dealing in the realm of the unknown, you don't know. So don't treat it like you do, because that's where I see people getting themselves into trouble.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of theories out there, but that's all they can be, is theories. Like, we have no way of proving whether this is legitimate or whether it's not. So it really is just thinking about the possibilities. And if something resonates with you, like, great, that resonates with you. That's your belief system on that. But again, it's a belief system. It's nothing that we can prove. It's nothing that we can be like, oh, this is 100% what happens. Like, I very much felt that in one of my lifetimes that we saw, well, I saw with you, I was like, that we went through. No, but I was a very public figure. And, at the time I wasn't aware of who this person was, but I was made aware after the fact. And even after that fact, I'm like, the possibilities of me being this person, sure, it's possible, but I'm sure that there's 1,000 other people out there that have had the exact same experience in the exact same life and have gone, well, I was that person. So there is that element of like...
No, it wasn't Cleopatra for anyone who's thinking that.
No, definitely not.
And no, it wasn't Joan of Arc.
No.
No, it wasn't Mary Magdalene.
No.
No, it wasn't Mother Mary.
No. Do you want to keep guessing?
Well, I mean, I know I could just keep going down the list of people who are thinking right now. Yeah.
But, I very much kind of came to that belief system of like, yeah, maybe it is a collective consciousness. Maybe it's something that from that life that I needed to see. Maybe that wasn't me personally, but there's something there that I needed to see, that I needed to relate to. Like, there's plenty of possibilities there. There's plenty of theories there of how that would work. But we can't prove anything. But again, it's like, it's not who I was that was important. It was the lesson behind it. And that's what I took from that. I didn't take the, oh my gosh, I was this person, like how incredible was I? It's no, I took the lesson from behind that and went, okay, I was willing to do whatever it took. Why am I not willing to do whatever it takes in this life? What's stopping me now?
Well, you were just compensating for your height in that life. That's what your conquest was all about.
I was not Napoleon.
That was good. I'm sorry for cutting you off there. I couldn't resist.
At least I knew who that was that you were referencing.
That was good. That was pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. I'm proud.
Took you a while to get the Germany thing, but Napoleon you got like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it's definitely one of those things. But I think, too, how do people really deal? How do you find that people really deal with those connections when they come out of regressions? If they do have connections with other people in past lives that are different, or they are a connection with you in past lives, how do they kind of come out the other side and deal with that? Because I know that when I came out the other side, I was very much an overbearing mother for a few days until I kind of like settled and was like, maybe I just need to give this guy a break and not message him all the time and be like, are you okay? But what is the standard sort of process that you see?
Honestly, this is going to sound bad. Maybe not. Well, I feel that sometimes that can get in the way of what's or at least what I perceive to be important.
Mm.
That there's such an emphasis placed upon a certain connection that some people will just neglect everything else that came out of the session and just choose to focus on that connection. And I think the thing that can be very detrimental is the assumption that, if you find yourself in a similar dynamic, the assumption that dynamic will play out the same way as it did in the past life. On the whole, I think people walk away with a good perspective, though, about what's important. But I think still it's one of those things, proceed with caution and be careful, because it's not about the information that you're presented with. It's about how you choose to perceive that information that you're given. I think that's what is the game changer. And still making assumptions. I think it's so important to let things unfold. When I see, in my own regressions, when I see someone in a past life who has done something to hurt me, I keep it in that life. I don't look at them as the person that did that thing to me. Well, of course, there's a part of me that's like, well, I'm not going to forget that. But, and it may help me understand some of the feelings I have surrounding that person. But I understand that was a dynamic of a past life. And even if, let's just say someone was a spouse of mine in a past life, that's what they were in a past life. they could just be a good friend now, or just someone I encounter at the grocery store. And that's it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it's just a matter of understanding that was then, but now is all that matters.
Yeah. Even with us, like we refer to ourselves as aunt and nephew in a joking manner. It's not, we're not like, oh my God, we must be family. It's just, we have a great friendship. Yeah. And it's just like a joke that we play with.
Well, it's like, we get it.
Yeah.
That's the, like, I don't actually think that you're my aunt in this life. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's joking around in that respect, which I think is totally harmless and fine, because we get it. Like, I understand that you're not my aunt. So, yeah. But as you've seen, like, there are other dynamics that we've had as well.
Yeah.
But those were the dynamics there. Now, sure, they could explain some of our interactions now and the way that we approach it, but roles have been reversed at the same time, and reversed again, and reversed again, and reversed again. But when I look at you right now, I look at Elle. That's who I see right now. And yes, we joke about the anti-Elle thing. Broken record there. But that's who I see you as. And which I think is important, because I think if I were to look at you as anything other than that, it would be placing a past life dynamic up upon a pedestal when it doesn't belong up there.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think too, so many people tend to have this attachment to somebody in their current lifetime that they're like, oh, I must have known them in a past life. Like, there must be some sort of connection, right? But sure, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Maybe it was a nice connection. Maybe it was a not so nice connection. But either way, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to play out the same way now. But also, I guess, what do you really do for someone that has those intense feelings about being connected to someone? Oh, I must have known them in a past life, whether that's romantic or not, whether that's...
I think we're on the same wavelength right now. I think we're both thinking the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. What was... Oh, so the question is, what do you do for someone?
Yeah, like, what would you suggest, like, for someone who is, like, really intensely, like, oh my God.
We're talking about twin flames right now, right? That's what...
Well, I said not necessarily romantically.
But that's what you were getting at, though, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this is your Earthside Spirit Guide signing off for the week. If you'd like to know more about how you can work with me, you can follow me on Instagram at elle.embers or visit my website, elleembers.com.